Thank you very much. Judge, Ms. Khan, Ali Khan, you were the solicitor for the D.C., is that right? Solicitor General for D.C.?
Yes.
One of the issues you got involved in was Safe House versus DOJ. Do you remember that?
Yes, Senator.
And I think you took a position advocating for safe injection sites for drug users.
The position that we took in that brief that was joined by, I believe, 15 or 16 states was that the opioid crisis affects different jurisdictions differently, and we're all trying and should be looking to novel solutions. And Philadelphia thought that for its the nature of its opioid problem, that a safe injection site might be one of those novel solutions. And so as states that are all facing the terrible ravages of fentanyl and heroin, we wanted to give them that latitude and support their ability to experiment in ways of curbing this crisis.
You think there's a safe way to take fentanyl?
Senator, our brief was not to recommend any particular type of safe injection site. It was to say that if Philadelphia thought that that was one way of assisting their community with the opioid crisis, that they should have the latitude.
Would you be okay with a state basically allowing people to take fentanyl under state supervision?
Senator, until we are able to get the opioid crisis under control, I think we need to give users
Do you think that's
the resources
getting it under
they need.
control, allowing state-supervised use of one of the most deadly drugs known to man?
The site that Philadelphia had proposed had treatment services. It had overdose prevention.
How do you view fentanyl?
I think fentanyl is a nationwide crisis, Senator.
I mean, in terms of the danger fentanyl presents.
Talk about a tragedy that happened in Richmond a couple of days ago at the Altria Center in the heart of our city when gun violence erupted right at the end of the graduation ceremony for the 2023 graduating class of Huguenot High School. 2 people were killed, a Huguenot High School graduate, Sean Jackson, and his stepfather, Lorenzo Smith. It is a tragedy that is really having a deep, deep impact in my community, and I wanted to rise to speak about those who were killed, those who were injured, trampled in the pandemonium, the Huguenot High School community, the Richmond Public School community. The Altria Center is a beautiful entertainment and event venue on Monroe Park in downtown Richmond. It was built in the 1920s, and it was built in a Moorish architectural style and was given the name of the mosque. And it was called the mosque for a very long time. I was elected to the Richmond City Council in 1994, and members of our Muslim community came to the Richmond City Council and said, we understand that this building has a particular architectural style, and we understand it may even be sort of a tribute to us to call this building a mosque, but it's not a mosque. It's an entertainment venue. There's alcohol served. There's dancing and other things that wouldn't be appropriate. And our Muslim community asked in a very respectful way, can you come up with a different name for this facility? It was in my city council district, and we acted to change the name of this facility to the Landmark. And then a number of years later, Altria, a company headquartered in Richmond, agreed to help renovate the facility after nearly 100 years and bring it to more 21st century use, and the name is now the Altria Theater. I spend some time talking about this place because, Mr. President, I imagine you have places like this in Hawaii, these places where everybody has gone their entire lives for events just like high school graduations. Virtually every high school, public high school in Richmond, and many of the private high schools in Richmond and the surrounding community, you go to a graduation and it's at the Altria Theater. Of my 3 children, 2 of them graduated and walked across that stage at the Altria Theater. As a mayor and then governor and now senator, I've spoken at many graduations right there on that stage at the Altria Theater. And my wife, a graduate of Richmond Public Schools, who was a Secretary of Education in Virginia, First Lady of Virginia, has also delivered graduation speeches right there. We've been to concerts there. We've been to theatrical performances there. We know this building in every last square centimeter, and we know what it's like when the Altria Theater is filled with a crowd of people. High school graduation. I mean, think about, I'm 65 years old, so think about over the course of a life, the happiest days of your life. High school graduation, college graduation, your wedding day, births of your children. I mean, over the course of a life, there are maybe 5 to 10 days that are universal experiences for American people where it will be in the top 5 to 10 happiest days of your life, and high school graduation is that. And for Richmonders and people in the surrounding communities, you think high school graduation, the odds are you're walking across the stage at that theater. These Huguenot high school graduates had walked across the stage. The young man, Mr. Jackson, had shaken the hand of Jason Camras, the Richmond Public School principal, had received his congratulations. He's a young man who had done well in the classroom, but had a lot of challenges to get to that day. And often a graduation is that. It's an opportunity to thank everybody who helped you, but it's also an opportunity to reflect upon the challenges that people have to get to that day. You know, back in the day, the grandparents would tell us how they used to have to walk 5 miles through the snow to get to school. That may not be the case anymore, but an awful lot of our kids have to do the equivalent, the kind of psychic equivalent of a 5-mile walk through the snow, because they have to go through challenges, whether they were homeless, whether they got a cancer diagnosis through school. They faced adversity and challenges, and then they get to this day, and they are entitled. They are entitled to celebrate. And that's what they were doing. And then as they're exiting the Altria Theater, which is right near the campus of Virginia Commonwealth University, and they're crossing the street to a beautiful park, Monroe Park, directly across, these gunshots break out, 20 shots in succession, families scrambling, knocking over people, vendors who were there, knocking over citizens, people scrambling in every direction. A young kid got pushed out onto the street and got hit by a vehicle. Thank goodness she's going to be okay. Others sustained all kinds of minor injuries. But even those who were not injured, they will remember this and be scarred by it for the rest of their life. Because one of these 4 or 5 or 6 pivotal days in your life, the happiest days of your life, for them will always be connected to seeing a classmate killed and seeing this happy day turned into an unspeakable tragedy. I know how I think about my high school graduation. It was one of the happiest days of my life. Having been in that building, I know how the Huguenot community for the class of 2023 will remember their high school graduation day, and it's a tragedy that the memory is so polluted by this epidemic of gun violence. Mr. President, I had the opportunity earlier this year, and I've spoken about it on the floor, to attend another school in Virginia, Rich Neck Elementary School in Newport News. On the 6th of January, a 6-year-old brought a gun to school in a backpack, and it was a student who had all kinds of difficult challenges, and as his compassionate and brave teacher, Abby Zerner, tried to deal with the situation, the student shot her. Now, thank God she is recovering. Thank God no one was killed that day. But I had the opportunity, Mr. President, to go down about 2 weeks after that to have an off-the-record, no press, no administrators, discussion with parents and teachers at the school. And the degree of trauma of this happening, and the degree of fear. Every day I go to work now, I'm afraid that this might happen. Every day I drop my child off in the morning, I drive away wondering whether I'm going to get a call or I'm going to get an emergency alert on my phone, or when I pull up at the end of the day, am I going to be able to pick up my child, and will my child be safe? Kids all went to the Richmond Public Schools, the same schools that include Huguenot High School. And my youngest only graduated 10 years ago. But I will say, my wife and I, in pre-K to 12, in that 13 years for each of my 3 kids, never one day did we drop our kid off at school and worry about whether they would be safe at the end of the day. The shooting at Sandy Hook happened right after my youngest child graduated from high school. There had been shootings at Columbine High School years and years before, but the reality of my own children's public education, an urban school setting, was we weren't worried about them. But just 10 years later, what parent in this country who takes a child to school does not have a voice in their head with some worry about what might happen to them when they are there? And even if you live in a community where there has never been a school shooting, that fear is not